Are you kidding me of all days? Why now, mister? Anderson almost dropped his phone, panic tightening his voice as he darted behind the Grand Concierge desk at the Imperial Grand Hotel. Sunlight streamed through the glass doors, lighting up the lobby just as the Chinese business delegation emerged from their limousines, perfectly tailored suits glinting under the camera flashes. No way this is happening, not with everything at stake today, he muttered, raking his hands through his hair. In less than 15 minutes, the most important executives from China's top real estate group would be waiting upstairs, expecting a flawless $300 million contract signing. One wrong word, one clumsy translation, and months of work would evaporate. Mr. Anderson, I called every interpreter agency in the city. No one's available, stammered Missum. Sanders, his assistant, voice trembling. Nobody takes on something this huge with 10 minutes notice. Anderson felt sweat trickling down his neck. 10 years of building the hotel's reputation, and now everything teetered on the edge. Of course, he muttered bitterly, glancing at the antique clock on the wall. The Chinese delegation prided themselves on precision. They would never tolerate a last-minute, slapdash solution, let alone a translation app. By the elevators, the staff clustered in uneasy silence. Man, if we blow this, everyone in town will know by tomorrow, whispered a bellhop as a group of waitresses exchanged anxious glances. Suddenly, a soft voice rose above the tension. Excuse me, Mr. Anderson, I can help. I speak Mandarin. Every head in the lobby swiveled in shock. Alicia Evans, 22, stood near the banquet cart, her crisp white uniform and tidy ponytail making her look even younger than she was. She gripped a tray, but there was a quiet steadiness in her posture. Almost 2 years of working these crowded ballrooms, setting tables, topping up wine glasses, moving through invisible spaces between VIPs had taught Alicia how to blend into the background. Today, though, she was suddenly the center of attention. Mr. Sanders' nervous laugh broke the silence. Alicia, now's not the time for jokes. This is a multi-million-dollar deal. Anderson stared, struggling to recall if he'd ever really noticed her before. You actually speak Mandarin? His hope flickered, almost drowned by disbelief. Yeah, sir. Mandarin, Cantonese, and a little Shanghainese, Alicia replied, steady but soft. I studied Asian languages at Q&Y before starting here. She'd never imagined clearing glasses and folding napkins would lead to this moment. But every night she listened to the negotiations, absorbed the strategy talk, and especially noticed how Mrs. Sanders never remembered her name. Ms. Sanders' face turned from surprise to irritation. Mr. Anderson, you're seriously not thinking about this, right? You can't let a waitress handle the most important contract we've ever hosted. Anderson's knuckles turned white as he gripped the desk. The world felt as if it was holding its breath. Every staff member, from bellhop to bartender, was watching. Could he really risk everything on a 22-year-old waitress? But the clock kept ticking, and sometimes the only move left is the one nobody sees coming. With a shaky breath, Anderson realized the biggest leap of faith is often the only option left. Alicia straightened, her chin lifted ever so slightly as she spoke with a calm self-assurance that instantly drew the room's attention. Mr. Anderson's doubt flickered into curiosity. Prove it, he demanded, his nerves stretched thin. Let's hear you say something in Mandarin. Alicia filled her lungs, letting her nerves settle before she replied. When the words left her lips perfect, flowing Mandarin, they seemed to echo right through the marble pillars, as if the whole hotel was listening. Nushimen, Xian Shengmen, Hin Rong Xing Zai's Heli Yu Jian Yin, Ixo Wang, Woman de Hezuo Hui, Dai Lai Huxiang Li. Even if Mr. Anderson couldn't catch a word, he heard the ease and clarity in Alicia's tone, a fluency no translation app could fake. His eyes widened. And what did that mean? She answered without missing a beat. It's a traditional greeting, letting them know it's an honor to meet and wishing for successful teamwork. It's the language of respect in Chinese business. Miss. Sanders pressed her lips tight, discomfort flashing across her face. Mr. Anderson, you need to be careful. The Chinese aren't going to take us seriously if you send in the waitstaff. A brief memory stung Alicia a few months ago, catching Ms. Sanders whispering about that black girl always hanging around the important people. She'd learned to pretend not to hear, but the words never really left her. Anderson watched Alicia in a way he never had before. He saw not just a waitress, but a woman who had picked up more about the hotel's inner workings than most assistant managers ever did. Finally, he said, "You've got 20 minutes. Find something formal, then meet us upstairs in the ballroom." As Alicia moved quickly toward the back hallway, "Mrs." Sanders muttered in a harsh undertone, "You're making the biggest mistake of your career, Mark." Arvin Dernon. But Anderson was already making plans. For the first time, he wondered if the most overlooked people might be the ones holding the hotel together. If you're caught up in this real-life discrimination story, hit that like button and stick around, because when untold talent finally gets its chance, you know something powerful is about to happen. Back in the cramped break room, the staff clustered around the coffee machine, tension simmering as they replayed what just happened in the lobby. "Did you see Sanders' face when Alicia spoke Mandarin?" whispered Jade, the front desk clerk, barely containing her grin. "I thought she was gonna swallow her pearls." The new bellhop, Marco, shook his head in disbelief. "Man, I've worked at 5 hotels and never seen anyone jump in like that. People always talk about diversity hires, but Alicia just did what none of the suits could." He crossed the room. 2 senior housekeepers exchanged knowing glances. "Funny, ain't it?" one murmured. "They look right through us until they're desperate. Then suddenly, your skin or your accent's a problem, or the only thing that can save them." For a second, even the dishwasher, usually invisible himself, joined in. "My cousin used to say, the kitchen and the cleaning crew know more secrets than the CEO." Laughter bubbled, but underneath was a powerful reminder everyone in that room had a story about facing discrimination in real life. The events unfolding today were just the tip of the iceberg. At that moment, Jade scrolled her phone. "Guys, look, someone already posted Alicia's story on the Unveiled Wealth channel. Hundreds of comments already, calling out the hotel for finally recognizing real talent." The staff's whispers turned into a surge of pride and a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, the system wasn't as unshakable as they'd been taught. 20 minutes later, when Alicia entered the crystal ballroom, an immediate hush swept through the entire space. Gone was the hotel uniform now. She wore a borrowed black dress, simple but elegant, thanks to a kind word from the coatroom attendant. Her hair was swept up into a polished bun, her posture quietly determined. In her hands, a plain notepad looking less like the youngest waitress in the building and more like someone born to be here. "No way. Is that really her?" whispered one of the assistant managers, his disbelief obvious. "Mizzy." Sanders, not even bothering to lower her voice, leaned in and hissed to the event coordinator, "Dress her up how you want. She'll always be just the help. You can dress up a bus girl in pearls, but she's still just a bus girl underneath." "Missing." Sanders sneered, just as the Chinese business delegation arrived punctual to the second. 5 impeccably dressed executives paused by the ballroom's panoramic windows, their low conversation in Mandarin floating above the city skyline. "Mr." Anderson stepped forward, choosing his words with extra care. "This is Alicia Evans, our specialist for East Asian relations." He gave no hint of her real job title. The delegation leader, Mr. Liu, greeted Alicia with a respectful nod. When she responded flawless Mandarin, complimenting their promptness and expressing gratitude for the meeting, Mr. Liu's eyebrows lifted in genuine surprise, a subtle smile breaking through his formal mask. For the next 15 minutes, Alicia moved between English and Mandarin like she'd done it her whole life. She didn't just translate words, she caught every cultural nuance, every diplomatic pause, and even slipped in a gentle joke that made Mr. Liu laugh aloud. The mood in the ballroom shifted, tension dissolving as the meeting flowed better than anyone expected. That's when Miss Sirowars, Sasoro, Sanders struck, her voice sugar-sweet but her eyes sharp. "Alicia, maybe you'd like to share your unique background with our guests. It's such an inspiring story. After all, moving up from serving canapes to international negotiations." Mr. Anderson shot her a look of warning, but Sanders pressed on. "I just think it's so rare to see someone completely reinvent themselves." The mockery was unmistakable. Alicia felt a familiar chill she remembered overhearing Sanders months ago on the phone, venting about the black girl who keeps hanging around VIP events. But Alicia kept her cool, letting the room's attention settle on her. Life's full of surprises, Alicia replied, calm but unwavering. No one expects the person clearing tables one year to be translating million-dollar deals the next. She let the words sink in, glancing at the Chinese guests, who looked increasingly puzzled by the sudden shift. It just goes to show our hotel values all kinds of talent, Alicia finished. The silence that followed was sharp as a pin drop. Mr. Liu's face tightened, not quite insulted, but definitely uncomfortable. In his culture, hierarchy mattered. Bringing a waitress into the meeting without proper title was borderline disrespectful. Mr. Anderson tried to recover. We make it a point to recognize skill wherever we find it. But the damage was done. The rest of the session felt tense. Alicia could sense the Chinese team's attitude change. They grew cautious, polite but suddenly distant, treating her like a curiosity, not an equal. At that exact moment, a new twist unfolded, one nobody in the ballroom saw coming. A guest in the lobby, a well-known celebrity chef who had stayed at the hotel a week before, recognized Alicia through the glass doors. Days earlier, she'd quietly saved his gala dinner by noticing a dangerous allergy label mistake in the kitchen, an act that had spared him public embarrassment. The chef snapped a quick photo of Alicia in the meeting, posting it on social media with praise. Never underestimate the hidden talents around you. Some of the best hospitality pros aren't even on the guest list. The post began to go viral within minutes. Unaware of the growing buzz online, Alicia sat quietly as the meeting wound down. The deal ended with a tentative handshake, no promises, just polite intentions. When the Chinese delegation left, Sanders could hardly hide her smugness. Well, that was memorable, she said, shuffling her notes with an exaggerated flourish. Next time, maybe we'll start by telling our clients who's really running the show. Anderson's jaw tightened, but before he could reply, Alicia stood up, her voice steady and just loud enough for everyone to hear. Mr. Liu mentioned something interesting as we left, Alicia said. Sanders arched an eyebrow. Oh, did he? What was that? He said my Mandarin was impressive, but that the room's power structure confused him. In his experience, the one who speaks the language is the one in charge. Alicia paused, letting that implication hang. He asked if I could call later and explain some of the cultural signals he picked up. Ms. Sanders' smugness faded as she realized the weight of what had just been revealed. In some places, language means power, something even the help can wield, if given the chance. Mrs. Sanders' face went pale as the reality sank in. For nearly 2 years, Alicia had blended into the hotel's daily chaos, rarely noticed, rarely thanked. But she was about to discover that being invisible can be the sharpest weapon, especially when you've spent years quietly watching, listening, and preparing for the one moment that changes everything. What Mimicry Yuri? Sanders didn't realize every sideways comment, every slight, every little humiliation had done more than just build resentment. It had sharpened Alicia's instincts, turned her into someone who noticed every power play, every secret, every whispered lie that drifted down the hotel hallways. 2 hours after the tense meeting, Alicia was back in her crisp housekeeping uniform, pushing her cart down the plush hallway. But this time, her steps were measured, her senses razor sharp. She'd spent 2 years memorizing faces, voices, even the careless notes left behind by the hotel's elite, especially Mandarin. Sanders, back to scrubbing floors. Miss. Sanders called out, making sure her voice carried for every nearby manager and server to hear, as she strutted down the hall with her favorite accountant, Jennifer. After today's circus, at least now everyone knows their place, Alicia kept her head down, methodically arranging towels, but every word was burning into her memory. What Sanders never guessed Alicia had, over the months, spotted confidential guest emails left open, overheard conversations about shady deals, even glimpsed secret files Miss Sanders had hidden in her office. She'd seen enough evidence of unethical business-manipulated accounts, even documents hinting at unfair competition and blacklisting smaller, minority-owned vendors from big contracts. You know what really gets me, Sanders boasted. Pausing for effect, Anderson honestly believed some waitress could save a $300 million event. 3 years of serving canapes and suddenly you're the face of the hotel, please. Right then, Alicia's phone vibrated an unknown number, but the message in Mandarin was unmistakable. It was from Mr. Teredion. Miss Evans, I'd like to meet privately regarding future opportunities. Are you available at the Blue Orchid Cafe tomorrow at 10 a.m.? I have a proposal that could change your career. Alicia's pulse quickened. This was no longer about just interpreting a few phrases. At the meeting, she'd realized Mr. Liu and his assistant weren't just evaluating her language skills, they were weighing her character, her business sense, her grace under pressure. That evening, in her tiny Harlem apartment, Alicia opened a folder she'd been building for over a year: guest complaints, screenshots of suspicious transactions, lists of clients denied service or overcharged, and photos of paperwork she'd quietly noticed, especially files showing certain undesirable suppliers, mostly Black or immigrant-owned, had been blocked from big hotel contracts. It wasn't paranoia. It was smart survival. Every major hotel has its shadows. 2 years working quietly behind the scenes had shown Alicia just how many rules got broken at the top. The file labeled Imperial Grand Irregularities was nearly 60 pages printouts of deleted emails, late-night phone call logs, and, most damning, snapshots of vendor contracts where Sanders had signed off on blocking 3 minority-owned businesses in the last year alone. Alicia had watched Sanders claim credit for staff initiatives, blame the help for every problem, and quietly steer promotions away from staff who didn't fit her polished image. The next morning, right at 10 and a sure, Alicia arrived at the Blue Orchid Cafe in a simple but classy dress she'd bought with her first real paycheck. Mr. Liu was already there this time, with Mrs. Lisa Wong, the group's international partnerships director. Miss Evan, Mr. Liu began in smooth English before switching into Mandarin. Yesterday, you showed more than just language ability. You demonstrated poise when it mattered. That's something we value even more than fluency. Missy. Wong nodded, leaning forward with interest. Our hospitality group is expanding rapidly in North America. We need someone who not only speaks the language, but truly understands both Chinese values and American business culture. Someone who's seen how deals really get made from the inside out. Then, with a knowing smile, Mr. Liu added, and someone with the backbone to stand tall, even when surrounded by people who think uniforms define worth. For nearly 2 hours, Alicia and her new contacts discussed everything from event strategy to the cultural blind spots that often left American hotels underestimating their Asian guests and investors. She casually mentioned a few of the things she'd observed around the industry, careful not to name names, but the message was clear. When Monsieur Wong slid a business card across the table, Alicia's heart skipped. On it was the logo Evans & Partners International Events. The compensation, if she accepted, would be 5 times her best year at the hotel. We want you on board, my son, La said, rising. But there's one important detail we'd like you to help us look into: certain inconsistencies we've noticed in the Imperial Grand's vendor records. We suspect there are practices that may break federal trade laws. Alicia gripped the card, steadying her breath. After years of feeling invisible, now 2 of the sharpest minds in global hospitality weren't just offering her a job, but a genuine partnership. There's an emergency board meeting at your hotel tomorrow. Mrs. Wong said quietly. The Chinese delegation has filed a formal complaint regarding vendor discrimination. That night, Alicia phoned her mother. Mom, you always told me patience was a woman's best tool. I think I finally get it. Her mother laughed softly. Sometimes, the ones who wait learn the most. Alicia stood at her window, watching the city lights of Harlem flicker in the dark. Tomorrow, she knew, everything would change. The next morning, the Imperial Grand's main conference suite buzzed with anxious energy. Mr. Anderson had called the hotel's top managers and the board to an emergency session. News of the Chinese delegation's complaint hanging in the air. Mrs. Sir Sanders breezed in, her sharp suit and stiletto heels clicking down the hallway, radiating confidence. She'd spent all night preparing a defense, certain she could blame the fallout on the incompetent banquet waitress Anderson had dared bring to the table. "I assume we're here to discuss the fiasco from yesterday," Sanders announced. "As I warned, letting an unqualified staff member lead such a critical meeting was a reckless move. It's cost us $300 million and our reputation." At that moment, the doors opened. Alicia stepped in, not in borrowed clothes but in a sleek gray suit she'd bought with her new advance. She carried a slim briefcase and a laptop, her stride calm and assured the look of someone who finally belonged. "Sorry for being late," Alicia said quietly, settling into a chair near Mr. Anderson. "I was just finalizing some important details for the meeting," Alicia said, opening her laptop with steady hands. "Petrus." Sanders' smile faltered, irritation clear. "With all due respect, Mr. Anderson, I don't see why she's even here. This is an executive session." "She's here," Anderson replied coolly, "because the Chinese delegation requested her specifically to clarify the complaint they filed about our vendor practices." Alicia connected her laptop to the projector. "Yesterday, Mr. Liu came to me with serious concerns regarding how the Imperial Grand selected contractors and approved suppliers. It appears there's evidence of bid rigging and intentional sabotage of minority-owned vendors." "That's outrageous," Sanders burst out, her voice trembling with anger. "What kind of evidence could a banquet waitress possibly have about executive decisions?" Alicia's soft smile was devastating. "The kind you gather when you're invisible for years and people talk as if you're a part of the wallpaper." For the first time, genuine fear flickered in Sanders' eyes. Alicia began her presentation. The first image projected was an internal email Sanders forwarding confidential bids from one company to another, dated months ago. This email, sent to Miller & Sons Catering, contains information about offers from a direct competitor, Alicia narrated. The room went dead silent. Sanders tried to interject, but Alicia pressed on. The next document details how event budgets for Black and immigrant-owned suppliers were systematically inflated, causing cancellations later blamed on so-called incompetence. Here are the spreadsheets, altered invoices, and security logs to prove it. The projector cycled through damning visuals, emails, spreadsheets, audio logs. For over 2 years, Alicia had quietly compiled every irregularity she'd witnessed. "This is a setup," Sanders cried, rising to her feet. "She's making this up to get back at me for exposing her real position." Alicia didn't flinch. "Mr. Anderson, the next file is a security recording taken by the hotel's own system 8 months ago." Through the speakers, Sanders' voice rang out. "We can't let these kinds of people think they belong in the executive lounge. We have standards at this hotel." Sanders went white. She recognized the conversation one she thought was private, warning a manager about keeping the help away from VIP decision-makers. Alicia continued. "And here's a recording from 2 weeks ago, Sanders explicitly instructing the front desk to discard resumes from candidates with foreign-sounding names. Mr. Johnson, a respected Black board member, leaned forward, face grim. Mr. Bree, Sanders, is this true?" It's out of context," Sanders stammered, beads of sweat gathering at her temples. "You have no idea the pressure I'm under to maintain standards." Alicia cut in, soft but firm. "Company standards require ethics, integrity, and federal anti-discrimination compliance, all of which have been violated here for over 18 months. Anderson turned, face like stone. "You have 30 seconds to explain why you shouldn't be fired for cause and reported to the district attorney." Sanders scanned the room for help, but saw only disgust. "You're making a mistake," she whispered, her voice crumbling. "She's just a resentful server who—" Anderson cut her off with quiet authority. "She is our new director of international partnerships. And Ms. Sanders, you're terminated. Effective immediately." The silence in the boardroom was absolute. Sanders stood frozen, swaying as she realized that her 10-year career had just collapsed in under 10 minutes. "Your access to all hotel systems will be revoked now," Anderson continued. "Security will accompany you to collect your things." He paused, looking her dead in the eyes. "And given the seriousness of what's been presented today, we'll be forwarding the evidence to federal authorities." As security led Sanders away, She turned to Alicia with a final venomous glare. You may have won today, but you'll always be just hotel staff at heart. Alicia met her gaze unflinching. You're right, I am what I've always been, someone who listens, learns, and acts at the right moment. The difference is, I'm finally in the place I was meant to be. 3 hours later, the meeting closed with Alicia officially appointed to her new role. Anderson pulled her aside, amazement in his voice. How did you do it? 2 years of evidence, recordings, documents. Alicia smiled for the first time in days. When you're treated like part of the furniture, people forget that even furniture can see and hear. Mr. Sanders underestimated the power of being unseen and overestimated her own. But I've learned the best revenge isn't taking someone down, but building something no one else could ever imagine. That evening, as she stood by the window of her new Midtown office, Alicia realized. This future, these open doors she'd earned with her own hands. This time, no one could erase her name from the story. 6 months later, Alicia Evans sat at her glass desk on the 30th floor of the Imperial Grand, reviewing new contracts in Mandarin, Cantonese, and English. The hotel's Asia business had grown by $400 million in half a year. Mr. Evans, the South Korean investors have arrived, Jennifer announced, now her personal assistant. They're eager to meet the woman who tripled our business in less than 6 months. Through the window, Alicia saw the Manhattan skyline, the city she once knew as an invisible face in a uniform. Now, as Director of International Partnerships, she was one of the city's most respected young executives. Her annual salary, $300,000, meant her mother could finally afford the best treatment for her illness, and Alicia herself had just completed her executive master's at Columbia University. What about the Forbes interview next week, Jennifer asked, scanning Alicia's busy schedule. Confirmed, Alicia replied, adjusting her navy blue blazer not from obligation, but by choice. They want to feature me on their list of the most influential young women in hospitality. Across town, Mrs. Sanders sat in a small Queens apartment, her former luxury condo gone. Medical bills for therapy and stacks of rejection letters covered her table. The federal investigation had left her with a $75,000 fine and a 5-year ban from holding leadership at any business with government contracts. Her name had appeared in every major hospitality magazine as a warning about toxic leadership now. Nobody in the industry would touch her. That morning, she'd seen Alicia's photo on the cover of Business Week, smiling alongside international executives beneath the headline, "The banquet server who changed a $300 million industry." What's his sir? The irony stung more than any punishment. Back at the Imperial Grand, Anderson called a full board meeting to announce record results for the year. Alicia Evans not only saved our $300 million contract with the Chinese group, he told the room, she opened doors to markets we never dreamed of reaching. Mr. Johnson, the same board member who'd witnessed Sanders' downfall, rose to speak. In my 40 years in hospitality, I've never seen a transformation as remarkable as what Alicia brought to this hotel. She's proven that real talent knows no color, no class, and it never hides behind prejudice. The room erupted in applause. Alicia sat quietly, thinking of the nights she once spent cleaning that very room just 7 months earlier. Alicia's answer during the interview was steady, humble, and real. Rebecca actually gave me the greatest gift. She taught me exactly who I never want to become. Her arrogance reminded me that real power is about lifting others up, not keeping them down. 3 weeks later, Alicia returned to Columbia University not as a student who once had to leave, but as the founder of the New Horizons Scholarship, created for young people forced to pause their dreams to care for their families. No one should ever have to choose between supporting the people they love and chasing their own future. She told a packed auditorium of inspired students. Her first act awarding 20 full scholarships, funded directly from her own $300,000 salary. Meanwhile, back at the Imperial Grand, Alicia walked the same halls she once cleaned, now mentoring a new generation of promising talents, many of whom, like her, had spent years unseen. Her journey had transformed more than just her own life. It changed the culture of an entire industry, proving that dignity and resilience can outshine prejudice and doubt. Weeks went by, and word of Alicia's rise spread through the hospitality industry like wildfire. Young staffers from all over Manhattan started leaving anonymous notes in her office, stories about microaggressions, being passed over for promotions, and the daily grind of invisibility. For the first time, their voices were being heard by someone who actually understood. Every Friday, Alicia ran mentorship circles in the staff lounge. What they don't teach you in school, she'd say, is how to survive when the odds are stacked against you. But this she'd gesture to the room full of dishwashers, bellhops, and front desk interns. This is where real leadership starts. Her favorite lesson: you never know whose story will become the inspiration that changes a system. Sometimes, the most powerful life lesson is simply refusing to quit when the world expects you to fade away. Alicia launched the Unveiled Voices initiative, a monthly event where staff from every background could share their story about discrimination or a time they overcame doubt. These meetings grew so popular that even city officials and journalists started attending. One night, as the mentorship circle wrapped, Alicia caught the eye of a new bellhop, a Nigerian immigrant named Temi. "Mr. Evans, you really think someone like me could ever run a place like this?" Alicia smiled, remembering how often she'd heard that very question in her own head. "Not only do I believe it, to me I expect it. This is your story too." It didn't take long before a major New York Times profile turned Alicia's journey into a headline. "Invisible no more. The untold story behind the woman transforming Midtown's elite hotels." The article spotlighted not just her achievements, but the powerful reminder for everyone that everyday racism and real-life discrimination still shape who rises and who gets ignored in America's biggest cities. The story went viral. Messages poured in from Black Stories communities, hospitality schools, and even CEOs who admitted they'd missed out on too much untapped talent for too long. Suddenly, every hotel in the city was reviewing its vendor lists and promotion policies, terrified of being the next Imperial Grand scandal. The final line of the article echoed Alicia's own words at Unveiled Voices. "The only thing more unstoppable than prejudice is the person who finally decides they're done being underestimated." The lesson no one will forget: let your actions speak louder than your doubters ever could. If you're inspired by how one moment changed everything, leave your thoughts below. Do you think stories like Alicia's will ever become the norm? Or is there always another mountain to climb? This is more than just a story about discrimination. It's a true story of second chances, Black voices rising, and powerful justice served. If you found strength in Alicia's journey, subscribe to Unveiled Wealth for more untold stories of courage, breakthrough, and real-life inspiration. Because sometimes the most overlooked people end up changing everything.